this first one, Marcy says, I'm not on Instagram, so I can't join you, but we did put the link on Facebook. But I think her message is important right now when the whole world is abuzz regarding what the Barbie movie has stirred up. An excellent teaching moment for her. So when I saw this, as well as there's a post on Instagram about the Barbie movie, I'll just tell you my immediate reaction. So I didn't know the movie existed because that's how I live my life. And then a friend of mine really wanted to see it, and I kind of got the heebie-jeebies. And then when Tyler just now told me about it, I was like, oh my gosh, didn't Barbie do enough damage with making women of all ages believe that our legs are not supposed to rub together at all, anywhere, no matter what? The self-consciousness of not having thigh gap that I got from Barbie. Do you know, at the impressionable age of 9 years old? So I don't really have much interest in revisiting what might have been done with that story, but just reading what people have said about it so far, I especially don't even want to see it. So I was imprinted. I was born in 1960, and I grew up with Barbie dolls and Ken dolls and Skipper dolls and Breyer horses and wedding reenactments, destination weddings all over my parents' house. But then my mother came home singing "Everything You Can Do, I Can Do Better." And the message of women are better than men. What do we need men for? So I was deeply imprinted with, you have to have a man. As a woman, you have to have a man, but don't need him for anything. So we need one to show up at the front of the church. We need one to show up at holiday dinners. We need one to show up dressed properly for double dates and company celebrations and whatnot. But that's all. No deep connection, no partnership, no interdependence, no co-creation, let alone respect, adoration, love, honor, and cherish. No, none of that. I didn't witness any of that culturally or in my own immediate experience. So, I'm just trying to shake it off. Okay, so Mia said, I'd love to hear her, meaning me, speak about a woman's connection to the divine. Why don't men have it? Is it really ours? How do we cultivate it, access it? Troubleshooting for when we definitely do not feel connected. So I would say, in my experience, men and women have a different kind of connection to the divine. And it has to do with the effects of testosterone and estrogen on our brains and on having two nervous systems, a limbic nervous system, right? And then the whole prefrontal cortex. And so we got two parts of our brain. The limbic is always ahead of the prefrontal cortex by at least a split second. So there's a lot that goes into it. But what I notice about men is that it's not that they don't have a relationship to the divine. In fact, I think they have a deep relationship to the divine, and it's part of what has them be in awe of women, that they recognize our connection to that. And it's not an unfamiliar thing, it's a familiar thing. And they can access the divine in relationship to women, in what women can provide. But they also have all these other ways to access the divine. And what's different is the focus part. So you might notice that religions that were founded and nurtured by men have rituals. So they have a physical location where this interaction is going to happen. And there's a step-by-step ritual to literally transition into a mindset to be able to be connected to the eternal, if you wanted to use another word. So I don't think either of our connections are better or worse. I think they're different. And one of the ways that I used to describe it back in the days when we had routers, and I used to describe women as having, what did we call it at the time, Tyler? So there was dial-up and there was
like a modem.
No, it was where we were always connected. And you plugged it in and it went through the phone line.
Ethernet? Is that Ethernet?
No. Ethernet is probably a good word for it, but there's another word for it, right? At the time, where was it constant or did you have to dial up? You had to intentionally want to be there. I'm going way back now. And that's my experience, basically, in general, that women can have an ever-present connection to the divine, and men tend to need to dial up. But the way that one of my mentors described how he saw it was that if you think about it like this, that there's human instinct, right, or human normal, and then there's human spirit, and that they always both exist. And sometimes what happens is human instinct eclipses human spirit. And I wouldn't say sometimes, this is most of the time. Most of the time, the tension that the perception of a threat or opportunity creates will eclipse human spirit. Does that mean human spirit's gone? No, it's always there. And it's why so much of my work is causing awareness of human instinct so we can see the eclipse. We can feel it. We can go, uh-oh, wait a second. And in that awareness of being taken over by fight and flight and freeze sequences, in that moment, you go, wait a second, I have a choice. I could do something else than what this is compelling me to do. So in your last part, how do we cultivate it, access it, troubleshooting for when we definitely do not feel connected? I think part of it is that most women spend most of their time these days in a state of mind where we have lots of results to produce. And the combination of needing to produce results and the awareness of so much in our environment can create a kind of mental, emotional chaos, would be one way to think about it, or fractured, or just we're going in so many directions at once. And I think in order for us to reconnect, it's not that we've disconnected from the divine, but to make the awareness of that centermost, we have to slow down. We might even have to stop and just be. And the practice of meditation, right, is popular for both men and women to quiet our busy brains so we can be with the eternal. And everybody has different ways of doing that. And I think the trick is both cultivating what works for us and then do it intentionally and even put it in your schedule to do it. So, for example, one of the things that I do when I'm in that going too many directions that I talked about and I want to recenter, this is literally what I do. And I'm not Catholic, which one might think I have to be. But what I do is I take Sarah McLachlan's rendition of the prayer of St. Francis. she turned it into a song. And I put it on my iTunes and I hit repeat. And I listen to and sing to and meditate, like focus on and think about, cogitate, ruminate on the words and phrases in that song. Once I did it for 6 hours, Tyler, you'll appreciate this, while I was moving manure with my tractor. Lots of manure, a mountain of manure. And
Can we live stream that one next time?
the act of me doing that, singing along with Sarah.
As long as we have the license to play the song for 6 hours.
Again and again and again. Okay, so that's what I'm going to say about that one. Then thank you. I want to say thank you to Haley and Rosalind or Roslyn and Vicky and Sahili. If you have a question for me on the reactions part of Zoom, if you click on that, one of the options is raise your hand. So I would happily answer your questions. I'm so glad that you're here. This is a free skate. I don't have something that I've decided I'm going to talk about. So I'm just here. And if you raise your hand, then I'll know you have a question and I'll call on you. And meanwhile, I'm going to work my way. There's just one more here that was sent in already. So this question, it's long in what she wrote, and it has many parts to it. Okay, Vicki, I see you. I'll be with you next. It's good to see your face, honey. So she asked, how do you recommend women respond to a, quote, break when the man asks for one? It literally makes me insecure within the second I hear that from out of nowhere. My instinct is to keep connecting during the break because I'm trying to save the relationship. I don't believe in breaks, but I could be missing something. It happens after I've fallen in love and trust goes from 100% to maybe 15%, all because he asked for a break. So the next part I'm going to talk about separately because it's quite a statement. So this concept of a break lives inside of something that I call myths of progression. And we talk about this in the program called Dating with Distinctions, which starts with, are you dating in the dark? And then there's 4 sessions of Dating with Distinctions. And the first one is myths of progression. And both men and women have beliefs about how things progress. And it starts with, for example, that you date, and then you become boyfriend and girlfriend, and then you get serious and you get engaged or make some kind of commitment, and then you get married and have babies and buy a house and live happily ever after. And so a break, right? We're not supposed to take a break. We're supposed to progress. A break is not progression. Well, but the beliefs in progression actually steer us wrong all the time. They have us pay attention to what I would call form instead of substance. Instead of paying attention to, am I getting what I need? Am I giving what I need to give? Am I able to give the other person what they need? Are they validating that they are in fact getting what they need? And is what I need from them something that they're happy to give to me, willing to give to me, care about giving to me? So the substance of what's happening between two people as they're learning each other, how much are they reaching towards the other person? How much are they solving problems that come up? Because men and women literally have opposing, it's not just opposite sexes, opposing instincts. We naturally bring out the worst in each other. it's naturally the hardest for us to do what brings out the worst in the other, because it's the opposite of what we think it should be. So deciding that we're in a timeline, that we're on a route, and that it only can go one way, that's one of the things that's going to set us up to fail. And to not be paying attention to the substance. Am I getting what I need? Is what I want to give received well and appreciated? Does he seem to be thriving from giving me what I need and from what I'm giving him? Am I thriving? Am I better off with this person in my life? Or am I better off without this person in my life? Am I happier? Am I more myself? Am I more fulfilled because of having this person in my life? Or am I just managing a path that has a destination we're supposed to get to, and these people keep aborting the path? No, we're going somewhere. There are no breaks. So often when a man or a woman is asking for a break, it's a way of saying, I can't give you what you need, and I'm not getting what I need. But most people don't have that language. They don't have that way to be able to speak about what's happening without anger or frustration or somebody being wrong. And this is why when Dan and I met and committed to an exclusive exploration of who we can be for each other, I have said the same thing for almost 3 years. Okay, we love each other. Now let's find out if we fit. How do we fit? How do we fit? And we're going to be together as long as we can give and get what we need to give and get. And people do need to give. We all have things we need to give in relationship. And if we don't get to give it because it's turned down or refused, or it's not valued or appreciated, no matter how much we get from that other person, we're never going to be fulfilled, ever. If it's all about getting, we'll never be fulfilled. So we have to pay attention to both sides. And a break is just somebody saying, you want too much from me. I can't give you what you seem to be asking me for. And I've had women take breaks because the man that was asking them for more time or attention or affection than they were willing or ready to give, or even support than they were really ready to give. It's not just men who call breaks, but that's one interpretation of a break I would give you. Another interpretation I would give of a break is that when men are upset and they don't know how to solve a problem, they literally take a break. They leave the room. They go outside. A lot of times they go outside so they can calm down and think clearly and work their way through what seems to be happening. And what women do is what you described here. My instinct is to keep connecting during the break because I'm trying to save the relationship. If you keep connecting, you're actually preventing a break. And that break could actually be to your benefit. In that keep connecting, we keep asking for something. We're asking for them to connect with us. And so we keep them present to what's had them want to take a break in the first place, that we're asking for more than they can give. Whereas if we let them be, if we control our own instincts that say we're only safe if we're connected, if we let them be, then they have a chance to miss us. Then they have a chance to see if they were better off with us. And maybe they just need to make some agreements with us to do something differently instead of opt out altogether. So often the things that we do to try to keep a relationship is what will definitely end a relationship, trying to keep anybody. So I hope that helps. And then I just have to say, I don't agree with this next statement. Men don't know how to drive relationships well. And to ask for this usually kills the relationship. No one knows how to drive relationships well. And our instincts will drive them right into the sewer. What we think we need to do to drive them actually does kill them. Driving kills what's really going on. And we talk about what's really going on in a course called Lux. And it's an online course. It's less than 8 hours. And if you decide to participate in it, it will change how you see what's happening between people all the time. And it'll give you control of what you can actually control. We cannot control relationships at all, let alone drive them. They don't set up a woman to win. And we also need to win by not losing trust. It's devastating. Men and women equally don't set each other up to win. We set men up to fail all the time. And mostly we set each other up to fail by not saying what matters, by not telling the truth, by not leading with what we would break up over. We usually conceal what we would break up over, hoping that we won't end up breaking up because they'll love us so much or need us so much. But if we lead with what we think we'd be broken up over, then, as I thought in my head, as I told Dan this stuff, if you're going to run now. It's better to have people leave when you care the least about them leaving because you honored yourself by telling the truth, and you even honored them by telling the truth. So they have a choice when they've invested the least. And then we're interacting on a completely different level, the level of our truths, the level of our values. Okay, Vicki. Hi there.
Hi. This is such a miracle. I'm alone in a beach house in Rehoboth, Delaware. And I was just looking at Facebook and I saw this link. And I've been so in my head about a relationship all day. Like I've been suffering and struggling. So I've talked to you about Tony before and this trip that we're going on. And that I had said we're not going to see each other for a while because I felt when I did dating and distinction, because I dating in the dark and dating distinction, because I felt like it was just a chemistry and not wanting the same thing. Well,
okay, hold on a second. I need you to help me by tell me what you want from me before you tell me any more information.
I want some distinctions so that I can locate my true self and even tell what my true self wants.
Yes. Okay. All right. Have you participated in Lux, the online course?
I'm almost done it.
You've almost done it. Okay. And have you watched Thrive Your Life?
No.
Okay. So that's going to be your next assignment is Thrive Your Life. Okay. So from Lux, you already know the only things that you can affect are how are you being, how are you listening, and what are you speaking for? What's the point of your speaking? What's the purpose of your speaking? And how you're being matters the most. So you getting clear will dramatically affect how you're being. It'll keep it from being messy and it'll allow you to set yourself and Tony up to win. Okay. So this is why I want you to watch Thrive Your Life next. And I think it's like $35 or something and maybe less. And it's very to the point. Okay. So it's to the point of how do you gain clarity? Like literally, mechanically, how can you use your own mind to become clear? And how can you use your own mind to test how clear you are so that you know if you're clear enough? and you actually will be given standards. You're clear enough if you can say this, if you can picture this, if you can feel your way into this. And then what it will teach is what we call short lists. And it's LISTS because there's always two lists. And so it'll direct you to first start with, on this trip with Tony, if you go, what do you want to experience? So imagine you're at the end of the trip and you're telling your best friend what it was like. And it was wonderful. It was. So you answer the question. So what was it like? If this is the one that you want to experience, how would you describe it? But in no more than 5 words. 4 is better. So a short list. And once you've got your short list done, then you start your second short list. And your second short list is taking into account the things on your first short list of what you want to experience. What do you need to happen or to not happen in order to experience that? And again, it's going to be a short list, 3, 4, 5 things at the most. Why? Because if you give a man 20 things that you need, his reaction will be, I can't win. If you give him a short list, I need these 4 things. I need these 4 things in order to experience what I want to experience on this trip with you and end up being a happy camper. They can do 4 things, but those 4 things you will have a degree of clarity about because of how you're interacting with your own mind to develop both lists. And then the last thing it'll teach you is what to do with those questions that the amygdala produce. But what if? But what about? But what if this happens? What to do with those questions? And what to do with those questions is actually awesome. It's so empowering when you head into them. The short answer is answer the question. But what if I'm miserable? Okay, what if I'm miserable and we're in Oklahoma and we're miles and miles from home? Okay, I'm gonna find out, okay, where are all the major regional airports, where are the regional airports, major airports, and bus routes back home from everywhere we're going. So at any moment, if I want to get off this trip, I can. Take me to this bus stop. I'm going home. That's one possibility is an answer to, but what if? But when we answer the what if questions and we have a plan for them, when something comes up, we know what to do. We don't have to worry about it. And sometimes our plans actually become really appealing. Like, oh, I kind of hope that happens. So, oh, I would just take a bus from Oklahoma. Oh, I visit my sister in Chicago. That's what I do the rest of the time. So these are just imaginary examples, but that's what I would have you do. I'd have you watch Thrive Your Life. It's like an hour and 40 minutes or something, and then just get to work getting clear. So you don't have to be a mess about it. And then Tony can know exactly what you need. On what terms are you coming on this trip? And he can let you know ahead of time if he can give you what you need, or if it's doomed because he can't give you what you need, in which case you can opt out legitimately, honorably. Does that make sense?
Yes. Do I make the list in writing or do I just tell
Absolutely. In writing. 2 Post-its if you need to, because they're very short lists in writing. So Dan and I traveled to Costa Rica about 4 months after we met, and I was really nervous about it. I was working in Costa Rica, and then we were going to drive across to the other side of the country, the other coast. And so I had a short list. I had short lists for the travel part. How did I want to experience the travel and what did I need? And at a short list for when I was working in Costa Rica, how did I want that to be and what did I need? And then I had a short list for the vacation part of what we were doing and what did I want to experience and what did I need? So I had all 3 lists and I gave them all to Dan. I showed them to him and went over them with him. And he would bring it up. He would bring it up as we were in the middle of the trip. He would bring up my short list. So how are we doing with that? It was awesome. It's a great way to partner.
Can I ask one more question or one more place I've been stopped today?
Yes, but I need to check in with Tyler first because we're almost at time. And he raised his hand, which means he's representing somebody. Tyler, what you got?
So I have a question, and I also from Agatha, but I also had a question that I wanted to know more about freedom from being ordinary in Los Angeles.
Okay. All right, so let me address those, and then Vicki, I'll come back and find out what your other question is. So, what's the question from
Agatha asked, what if my boyfriend wants me to pay half on a date all the time?
Well, money is something that we can get all in a mess about, or it's something that we can create about. We can cause and create. And it all depends. It all depends on what the point of money is and how much discretionary money you have and what you're doing with it. And everybody's different. And when I met my husband, he made about 3 times as much money as I did. He had saved about 20 times as much money as I had. He was very secure in his career. He was a king, and he just wanted to support me in what I was up to in life. That's what he wanted to do the most. And so, but we set up money in a particular way. Like, I wouldn't marry him until I lived with him. And to live with him, he needed to make room for my son in his house. And so I paid him $300 a month rent. But then what he wanted to give me was he wanted to give me the luxury of going to the grocery store and not keeping a running tally of how much money was in my basket, which is what I'd done for years. And I could do it within pennies, keep a running tally of everything that I was buying. And he wanted me to not have to do that. Just go to the store and get whatever we needed. And so I went to the store with his card, his store card that would charge his checking account for the groceries. Well, and then after we got engaged, he killed my car. And he didn't want me to have that car. He didn't trust how well it ran. He didn't like me being in it. He didn't think it was safe. And in his mind, I was already his. I was already his wife. He was taking care of me like his wife. And so and he literally killed my car. I mean, he knows better than to run a car with an oil light on. And he did. And he called me up and he goes, I killed your car. And my reaction was, oh, you're so powerful. And he laughed. Yes, it was a good response time. But it turns out that the $300 a month I'd been giving him, he'd been saving for a down payment on a new car for me. He's so funny that way. So very different circumstances when he and I got together at 41 and 31 years of age and, made babies and did all that. Dan and I, what I had on my list before I ever met him, I had a statement about money. And what the statement is we don't need each other's money. There's room for partnership, for co-creation, for gifts, presents, surprises, treats. I wanted that about money. So early on, Dan and I made the agreement that Dutch is our default. Dutch is our default. So, we're renting a sailing catamaran for Thanksgiving. We're going Dutch. We're each paying half. And we did that on our trip to Costa Rica. We've done it on other things that we've done. We pay half. but we often will treat each other. Like he'll say, can I take you out to lunch, or can I take you out to dinner? Or will you come to dinner with me and the kids, my treat? Or I'll say, can I appreciate you by taking you out here or picking you up this food there? We'll do stuff, right? Well, I want to treat you to, like for his birthday, treated him to golf at one of the top executive courses in the world for his birthday 2 years ago. So there isn't any right or wrong way to relate to money, and being honest about what matters to you that someone would be treating you is really important. But things aren't as they were before, right? So women are making more and more money, and yet we still expect men to pay for everything. And that creates a burden on them. And often they're just looking to see, will we be dependent? Will we be entitled? Or will we be in partnership? And having conversations and working out agreements that honor both of you is how you end up in partnership. Okay, so a little bit on freedom from being ordinary. So this is the first live program that I will have gotten to do in the US publicly since January of 2020. And so I'm really excited to do it. So I'm going back to my old stomping grounds, Los Angeles, and we're going to be at the Gateway Sheraton at LAX in LA. And we had put our courses online in 2017. We had all our major portions of our curriculum online by April of 2017, because I wanted to teach new things. And I was so busy teaching the same things over and over again, live all over the country, I didn't have space to move on to new parts of my work. So we captured all that already existed and put it online. And ever since we did that, I've been there answering questions and helping people implement what they're learning. I spend 8.5 hours a month just doing that. And so this course that we're doing in October, at this point, I will only do a course live because what I want to accomplish in that workshop, literally workshop, demands being together live, that I can't do it on Zoom with breakout groups. And there's a lot you can do on Zoom with breakout groups, but there are things that we can't do. There are things that we can't cause. And so in freedom from being ordinary, we're taking on, you could say, the most deadly human instincts. And in fact, they're not even just human instincts. They're more primitive than human beings. For example, so many animals compete. Most of them do, if not all, compete. So we're taking on competition, and what competition does to our relationship to ourselves, to our relationship to our body, to our relationship to our strengths, to our beauty. We're going to be wrestling that alligator, men and women together. We're also taking on prejudices of all kinds. It's such a huge thing in our world right now, but almost no one is empowered. Almost no one has a way of looking at prejudice that has them be competent, that has them be facile, that has them be able to interact in ways that have freedom and truth and self-expression in them. So we're taking it on, and we're going to take it on in a way that it becomes obvious the disconnects that prejudice causes, and by getting it down to the smallest piece of prejudice. Where does prejudice actually begin? What are its essential elements? And when you get down to the essential elements, you can use what normally would create prejudice to create connection. And it's going to be happening all weekend. We're going to interact with it in so many different ways until we're able to laugh at it. And we're able to laugh at the thoughts we have, we're able to laugh at the perceptions that we have, and how skewed and filtered our perceptions are, and how much they prevent connecting with other people. So those are two of a couple of major things I'm taking on. I'm also taking on anger. Talk about destructive. We're taking on anger, and we're going to restore ourselves from having been injured by anger and being ashamed at having hurt other people through anger. Is that enough for now, Tyler? Okay, good. So freedom from being ordinary has prerequisites that both our live workshop graduates and our online workshop graduates all have to complete. And they are Lux and Understanding Men and Understanding Women. And they're because they provide the foundation for what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be addressing gender inside of those other topics, because we have different relationships to, for example, anger and competition. And but those are prerequisites, and those prerequisites are included in the cost of the weekend. So all in all, it makes it really affordable and still has us be in the very low end of live workshop costs. Good for now?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Tyler. Okay, Vicki, and then we're going to sign out.
Okay, so
Carol, I'm sorry, I just have to pause. Carol is playing the harp while I'm talking. That is so cool. You didn't know I can see you? I'm not a television, Carol. You have your video on it. I'm watching your fingers go. You just keep going. It's beautiful. I don't have to hear it to know it's beautiful. I love harps. All right. Thank you, Carol. Yes, Vicki. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, so if I tell you what I want first, what I want is to know what to do. Okay, like distinctions or something. And I'm going to make this story as
okay. Don't have time for a story.
Okay.
So what is the result? What is the result you want to cause?
I'm restoring myself.
Okay, so the result you want is to be restored. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, you don't have to tell me a story to be able to answer that. There's 3 things to do to restore yourself. You ready? 1 is to look and see, is there any part of what happened that I consider that I caused myself or the other person harm? Did I hurt myself or did I hurt them? You'll know, because when you think of it, you will feel shame, which is a terrible feeling in our gut. Like, oh. And so that's the first thing to do is, okay, is there any part I need to own where I harmed myself or the other person, where I betrayed myself or the other person? And most injuries have that component. I ignored my intuition. I didn't speak up. I sacrificed what I really need. I didn't hold a boundary. So, and that's always the first thing to address when you want to restore yourself, because until we own our part, we won't allow ourselves to be healed in other ways. It'll keep getting in the way. So after you've owned your part, and if you harmed yourself and or another person, and own that and forgive yourself for it, and look and see if there's anything to commit to. We call this noble forgiveness. The second part then is to look and see, how were you injured? How were you hurt? So-and-so hurt me when? And just a simple statement, no story. They hurt me when they said this. They hurt me when they did that. And the easiest thing is to ask somebody to stand in for that person. Because someone standing in doesn't have a different point of view, doesn't have a different explanation, doesn't have a yeah, but they can just say, I'm so sorry he hurt you when he said this. And then you got to see, will you let in the compassion that another person is expressing? We can actually be healed by another person's compassion. And then the third part is to look and see what conclusions have you made about yourself or other people. And these are things that can become implanted. They can become cemented, and we believe them. I'm to this. I'm not enough that. All men are this. He's such a blank, right? So we objectify and we judge and we decide it's true. And by deciding it's true, now we're going to make a strategy based on it, and it becomes the filter. There's so much information coming at our brains all the time. We're so much more perceptive than we think. We have to filter out. And unfortunately, our brains will filter out anything that doesn't validate our conclusions. So if we've decided, oh, I'm so stupid, our brain's going to collect lots of proof for being stupid. And any proof that we're not stupid, oh no, that's irrelevant. It just filters it out. It's irrelevant. Or, all men are jerks. They're jerks. They're just all jerks. You can't trust men. So our brains will filter in all the evidence that you can't trust men and filter out all the evidence for all the things that men are trustworthy for. So I use the Sedona methods to release those conclusions. It's part of Extreme Freedom. It's part of Lux. Hal Dwoskin's given me permission to use and teach the Sedona methods in anything that I do. But I can't keep up with them. I think he can give you a different Sedona method for every day of the year, and they're all magical. So before owning the harm that you've done yourself or others, and then maybe asking someone for noble healing and using the Sedona methods, the first thing that we have to do in order for those things to work is we have to first check and see, am I getting any benefit? Or it would be better to say, what are the benefits of me not being restored? What do I get out of this? If I'm not completely healed and whole and liberated from this, what do I get out of it? Because so many of our injuries we use to control other people. You can't talk to me like that because of what happened to me. Or we use them to belong. We have injury groups, and you have to be really messed up by your injuries in order to belong to the group. You can't be completely restored and still belong, not normally. Or Tyler, I think you know this about me, that after Greg died, right, which is 4 years ago now, I carried around the sheet, Restoration Requires. And whenever I was really messed up, I would look and see on this list, how was I benefiting by being really messed up from Greg having died? And about a week into it, I was looking at the list of benefits of injuries, and I saw belonging. Oh yeah, belonging's a benefit. Oh yeah, I get to belong to the widow group now. And then I thought, oh, but I think I'd probably be young for that group. Well, that would be special. So I Googled average age of widows in the US. I was 58. The average age was 59. I was going to be 59 in a couple months. I wasn't even a special widow. I don't want to belong to a group if I don't get to be special. Oh, it was so funny to unwind it. And that's when I stopped calling myself a widow. I stopped objectifying myself as a widow. That's not all of who I am, right? I would say my husband passed, right? Or you could say I was widowed, right? Like a verb, but I stopped ever saying I'm a widow and exacting any of the benefits that might have gone with that. Okay, so Vicki, that's my answer for now. And extreme freedom is all about being able to continuously restore ourselves because life is rough. Right, there's a lot of bumps and bangs and disappointments and things that happens. And so to be able to restore ourselves is awesome. And thank you so much for asking me questions, Vicki. Yay!
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Goodbye, Linda, Carol and her harp, Scarlett, and the others who joined us, and all of those who watched us on Instagram and YouTube. Thanks for being here.